You're listening to the Lanterns Radio Network. We are the network dedicated to empowering the individual, illuminating the truth, defending American exceptionalism, and inspiring future generations. Stay connected and get involved at lanterns.buzz for great radio. Get commentary and news of the day. Lanterns.buzz.
Good afternoon, everybody. You're listening to the HollowNet podcast here on the Lanterns Media Network, live from Phoenix, Arizona. Well, not quite live. I recorded this a day ago. I'm your host, Matthew Holloway, and today is Sunday, December 24th, in the year of our Lord 2017. It's Christmas Eve, and we're here to go over one or two small pieces that have come out this week. The ongoing Twitter war between Ben Shapiro and Rosie O'Donnell being one of them. But we're also going to talk about, more importantly, acknowledging that we are, in fact, in a cold civil war in this country, and mimicking the heroes of World War I in 1914. Perhaps, for Christmas, we can lay down arms. All that here on the HollowNet podcast on the Lanterns Media Network. Stick around.
People of this country, a responsibility and a duty greater than that of any since the Civil War.
It is the common people of the world that are interested in this business. They know when we have war, it is they that have to bear the burden. It's their sisters and mothers and daughters that have to wait, trembling, to hear the news.
We are called as a people to give testimony in the sight of the world to our faith, that the future shall belong to the free. Since this century's beginning, a time of tempest has seemed to come upon the continents of the earth.
I would remind you that extremism in the defense of liberty is no vice. And let me remind you also that moderation in the pursuit of justice is no virtue.
I want the people of America to be able to work less for the government and more for themselves. I want them to have the rewards of their own industry. This is the chief meaning of freedom. Until we can reestablish a condition under which the earnings of the people can be kept by the people, we are bound to suffer a very severe and distinct curtailment of our liberty.
You're listening to the HollowNet podcast on the Lanterns Media Network. The new conservative resistance begins right here, right now.
Allied reinforcements have arrived from the west.
You're listening to the HollowNet on Lanterns Media Network. The millennial conservative resistance begins here.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, that's right. The conservative resistance, the new conservative resistance, begins right here, right now, with you. You're listening to the HollowNet podcast here on the Lanterns Media Network. Lanterns Media Network, we're here to fix the machine. And on the HollowNet podcast, we hold the line against the night. Now, holding the line against the night had some interesting implications last night when we were greeted at sunset by the sight of the SpaceX Falcon, I believe it was a Falcon 10 or Falcon 9 two-stage rocket lifting off from Vandenberg Air Force Base and creating quite a stir across the Southwest. There were some very, very fascinating and funny tweets that came in off of that one. People thinking that Kim Jong-un had finally decided to end it all and was tired of President Trump talking smack. No, not the case. In fact, this was the launch that capped off a very successful year for SpaceX and gave one hell of a light show to the southwestern United States, even all the way out here in the outskirts of Phoenix. We saw that over the White Tank Mountains. You can check out the picture on my Twitter account. That's at Matt D. Holloway, at the HollowNet on the Twitters. Now, speaking of the Twitters, holy crap, shots fired man down on Twitter this past week as Ben Shapiro, that's right, the Ben Shapiro of Daily Wire, reported that he has received some harassing tweets from alleged comedian Rosie O'Donnell of Roseanne fame. Actually, no, I'm thinking Roseanne Barr, who is also insufferable. But Rosie O'Donnell apparently invited Ben to perform a fallacious act on her, despite assumably lacking the correct anatomical parts, but I'm gonna kind of stay away from that. But surprise of surprises, according to Ben Shapiro today, Twitter says that Rosie's tweets were in fact not abusive or in any way against their rules. So much to the surprise of a lot of the conservative world, apparently sexually harassing a Jewish man on Twitter is not considered singling him out. So he's in at least one socially protected class, given the fact that there's an incredible rise in anti-Semitism over the course of the last 5-6 years, but that doesn't seem to have availed him any additional protection from Twitter at this stage. So I am a little bit dubious of exactly what Twitter's protections entail or even mean. Is this a situation that's going to persist? I don't know. I don't know if it's going to get any worse with Rosie O'Donnell's increasingly inappropriate verbiage being spouted across Twitter toward Ben Shapiro, culminating the other day with an invitation for him to perform the oral act that is appropriate upon a female rather than that which is appropriate on a male. So it just appears that the battle is getting worse between the two of them, and it's really a shame to see the discourse in this country lowered to such a stage. Speaking of people who tend to bring out the best in others, I am happy to report that fellow Phoenician and YouTube provocateur, the rageaholic, the excellence of elocution himself, Razor Fist, was reinstated on Twitter, according to a release from his account earlier today, with an accompanying apology and explanation from the social media giant, explaining as to why they felt that mentioning the name George Lynch, specifically his last name Lynch, in response to an inquiry as to who his favorite guitarist is, qualified as targeted harassment. Folks, Lynch, aside from being an act, is also a name. Let us not forget this was also the name of Loretta Lynch. come on. I mean, prominent government officials with this name. This is not a weird name. But we are seeing, again and again, conservative voices become the target of censorship via Twitter and Facebook and not enjoying the same protections that their counterparts on the liberal side enjoy. Case in point, Ben Shapiro, Rosie O'Donnell. But I want to get to this point where we can discuss in common... Let me restart. Where we can discuss with civility and common ground our political differences. This past week, I put a post out there on the HollowNet, and it seems to have got a bit of traction. If you want to check that out, that's on thehollownet.com. Story is entitled, gee, Matt, remember what your own story's called. Come on, buddy. It's called 6 Divides Could Lead Us to the Second American Civil War. Because it really is a concern of mine, and I'm not speaking in hyperbole here. I really do believe that we have become so separated as a society that there is a legitimate chance that some event or some sequence of events could lead to a fracturing of our nation once again. I don't think it's going to be as cut, clean, and dry as the Civil War of the 1860s was, where it was state on state. I think it's going to be way, way uglier than that. We're going to be looking at an insurgency-style civil war with multiple fronts, with several different factions. One commentator on Facebook said up to 6 factions could break out into civil infighting. And I kind of ran them down here, and I used Razor Fist's example as one of them. And you can check it out again on HollowNet.com, but I had said, at number 6, the use of anti-discrimination laws to punish religious and moral convictions. These were laws that were intended to avoid people being discriminated against for being in a protected class, but now they're actually being turned against their very cause. They're being used to foster an age of discrimination against religious feelings and moral feelings. Number 5 was suppression of politically incorrect thought, and here is where I referenced the excellence of elocution himself, Mr. Razor Fist, as he was promptly banned from Twitter, as he explained in an expletive-laden vlog post. If you do, check this dude out. I enjoy his work. He's very, very libertarian, but whew! If you actually tried to censor him, it would be one constant tone. You gotta watch that language. Do not play him around the kids. But he has some salient points, and it's definitely a good way to check your echo chamber. And I really prefer to listen to people who are further to the right than I am, who are further libertarian than I am, who are further to the left than I am, or are more centrist than I am. So I kind of run either edge of the spectrum. You know, I dig Chris Merrill because, you know, he and I worked together a couple times in the past, and I consider him a friend. But he's very much a centrist when it comes to a lot of things with some significant libertarian leanings. Razor Fist, I would argue, is probably to the right of me, but again, probably has some significant libertarian leanings as well, based on what he's espoused and said. So check your echo chambers. You know, make sure that you're not getting too buried, because then really anything's poisonous. But I digress. Number 4, I said climate change, true or false? Are you on the side of settled science or more of a believer in challenging everything? So check that out. Number 3, I said secularism versus faith in politics. Number 2, abortion. And number 1, small versus large government. So I believe these are the 6 key divides that if we're not careful, if we're really not careful, could lead us down a road that leads to the destruction of the American state. And I made sure I said it on here. It's up to us to work daily on bridging the gap, seeking understanding in order to restore sanity, and make this country once again a land where disagreement and discourse is not only accepted, but is appreciated. And that's what we're all about here on the HollowNet podcast. We need to make it again a country where you have a right, nay, you have a responsibility to voice your disagreement from the Vox Populi. Now we're going to take a real quick break here, and when we come back, we're going to dive into a little bit of history. We're going to talk about the ceasefire, the Christmas ceasefire of 1914. Took place during World War I between English troops and their German counterparts on Christmas, and it all started with a Christmas carol. So you're listening to the HollowNet podcast here on the Lanterns Media Network. It's Christmas Eve, 2017, and we got a lot more to get through. Stick around. Hey everybody, this is Matt Holloway. You're listening to the HollowNet podcast on the Lanterns Media Network, and I want to thank you for your continued listenership and readership and all the support that you've given me and everyone here at Lanterns over the course of the last year or so. Now, as we come up on a year of delivering this podcast on a weekly basis, we've begun to feel a bit more like a community here at Lanterns.buzz. And right now, we're a community that's in need of assistance. So I wanted to call on all of you today, if you can, to log on to patreon.com and search for Lanterns on patreon.com. That's patreon.com/lanterns, because we need your assistance in order to build this network out bigger, stronger, and better than it's ever been. With your support, we can bring in more voices that have been stifled. We can celebrate American exceptionalism. We can grow and educate our people. We can lift a lantern to shine a light into the darkness. Our mission is to shine a light on the actions that our government is taking now or have taken in the past to threaten the rights of Americans without consideration to the political party or organization. We will expose destructive counterculture that aim to destroy the idea of America and celebrate the parts of our culture that live up to the great ideals formally expressed by our founders. Up until now, our entire operations have been funded from the generous contributions of our team members. That generosity has created a growing demand for our pro-American content, and with that growth has come new challenges to expand our operations. Our goal is to expand and maintain the operations of our website and the radio network. And we humbly and graciously ask that you consider supporting Lanterns.buzz by becoming a patron on patreon.com. Again, that's www.patreon.com/lanterns.
Allied reinforcements have arrived from the west.
You're listening to the HollowNet on Lanterns Media Network. The millennial conservative resistance begins here.
And we're back. You're listening to the HollowNet podcast here on the Lanterns Media Network from Phoenix, Arizona. I'm your host, Matt Holloway. If you want to check us out on Facebook, follow us on facebook.com/HollowNet. You can also check us out on patreon.com/theHollowNet if you want to become a patron. If you prefer Maker Support, you can check us out on Maker Support as well. Link to that is on the top of my Twitter and the top of my Facebook. And if you prefer to view us on YouTube, we have the YouTube channel set up now, and also on BitChute. So that's bitchute.com/theHollowNet if you want to see my handsome smiling face. I'm wearing a little Santa hat today, so that's cool looking. All right. So now, we're going to get to a little bit of a history lesson here, and it's brought to us by History.com, hashtag not a sponsor, but they do provide some wonderful information on this story. So during World War I, on and around Christmas Day, 1914, sounds of rifles and firing and shells exploding faded in a number of places along the Western Front in favor of holiday celebrations in the trenches and gestures of goodwill between the enemies. Starting on Christmas Eve, many German and British troops sang Christmas carols to each other across the lines, and at certain points, the Allied soldiers even heard brass bands joining the Germans in their joyous singing. The light of first dawn on Christmas Day, some German soldiers emerged from the trenches, approached the Allied lines across no man's land, calling out "Merry Christmas" in their enemies' native tongues. At first, the Allied soldiers feared it was a trick, but seeing that the Germans were unarmed, they climbed out of the trenches and shook hands with the enemy soldiers. The men exchanged presents of cigarettes and plum puddings and sang carols and songs. There was even a documented case of soldiers from opposing sides playing a good-natured game of soccer in between the trenches and the mortar craters in the no man's land. The so-called Christmas Truce of 1914 came only 5 months after the war's outbreak, and was one of the last examples of the outdated notion of chivalry between enemies in warfare. This was the sentence that really got my attention when I read this story. And I heard about this in history class when I was a kid. And World War I has always been one of my biggest fascinations with history, because it was really the last great war of the old era and the first horrible war of the new. And when I say that, it's because this is the point where mechanization really started to take hold. Some of the technology that we saw at the end of the American Civil War, like the Maxim gun and the rifled round and the repeating rifle and things like that, were harbingers of much deadlier things to come. And it took over 50 years before we saw those new advancements in technology really trotted out in earnest in a full-blown war. And that's what World War I represented. World War I also represented the absolute devastation of the aristocracy in the UK, because some of the hardest hit families were those of the nobility in the UK, because they were officers in the military by cause of their titles and their peerage. And it was just absolutely devastating. It was one of the biggest things to knock out the landed aristocracy in the UK. It knocked out most of the nobility in Europe and really reset the social structure. Remember, this is the conflagration that gave us communism, that gave us the Communist Manifesto, gave us the Russian Revolution, and the rise of communism and Leninism in the Soviet Union, and the toppling of the Tsar and the assassination of his family and him. This saw the collapse of the German Empire, saw the collapse of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. World War I brought an end to the old age of the ancient regimes in Europe. And in the Middle East as well, it toppled the Ottoman Empire. So 100 years later, over 100 years later, we are today still coping with the aftershocks of World War I. It's an amazing thing to think about. But I could prattle on about World War I all day. But what I bring this point to you over is, I mentioned how close it seems we are to a second civil war in this country. And realistically, one can honestly say that we exhibit all the hallmarks of a cold civil war today. We're seeing an ideological divide all through the country, through every walk of life, where people size you up immediately and decide whether you're friend or foe based on 6 key factors that I pointed out. And it's in these 6 points and in the overarching point that people decide whether or not they can trust you, whether they can do business with you, whether they want to spend time with you. And look yourself in the mirror. Grip the mirror hard. We need to admit this as a country, that we are today in a cold civil war. Now, a civil war is a war between persons of the same country. A Cold War is defined as a state of political hostility between countries characterized by threats, propaganda, and other measures short of open warfare in particular. The most noted is the state of political hostility that existed between the Soviet bloc countries and the U.S.-led Western powers from 1945 to 1990. So if we remove the word countries there, and we replace just a state of political hostility characterized by threats, propaganda, and other measures short of open warfare in particular, we just described the political system in the United States today. Tell me I'm wrong. Honestly. Hop on Twitter if you disagree with me. Let me know. I mean, we have reached cold civil war. And it's not like, people will jump out and say, whoa, America's always been that way. No, I'm sorry. No. Have we been divided before? Yes. Has there been big differences between the parties? Yes. But at the end of the day, it was always respectful. And we always returned to that normalcy of, oh, Bob, he's a Democrat, but, at the end of the day, he's still my friend. We disagree and we fight and we talk in the bar and I think he's a dingbat when it comes to social programs. But at the end of the day, we're still buddies. We'll still go out and have a beer. But will you go out and have a beer with a stone cold liberal? Like straight out SJW. If you're a real rock-ribbed conservative, will you go out and have a friendly beer, go bowling, shoot some pool, play some Call of Duty or something? Will you get into a LAN session with a straight-up lib? And I mean hardcore, like ultra-feminist, vegan, pretty much democratic socialist liberal. Because I have friends who I've truly enjoyed spending time with and conversing with, who are cold liberals. I mean, just absolute straight-up liberals. And they probably describe me the same way, I'm cold conservative, But this is becoming so rare now. It's the politics has become so poisonous that we can't even chill. We can't even hang. And it's really, really sad. And it's symptomatic and endemic of the problem that we're having as a country. That we have gone from heated political discourse to a large divide between the parties to now out-and-out hostility just short of a shooting war. Just shy of it. Where it's, okay, I won't kill you. I acknowledge your existence as a human being, but I won't kill you. It's dangerous. And when I look at Twitter and I see this snark break warfare, snark for snark shooting, going on between Rosie O'Donnell and Ben Shapiro, for example. It's guys, I get it. Ben Shapiro, I don't know if you celebrate Christmas or not, bro. I think you mentioned that you guys get a tree and presents and all that, but it is Christmas Eve. And it's time to just lay down your weapons for a day. Okay? 5 months into World War I, Allied and German troops laid down their guns. They lit up a smoke, passed around a flask, and they sang Christmas carols. O Tannenbaum, O Tannenbaum. It was a great song. I'm not going to play it for fear of getting slapped down on YouTube for a copyright vi, but there's a great song out there from Charlie Brown, and it's Snoopy the Red Baron. And it tells a story of Snoopy going up on night before Christmas. And he's hunting down the Red Baron, his old foe. And of course, he's flying on top of a doghouse, but, we were kids. But he's going out and he's going to take on the Red Baron. The bloody Red Baron was flying once more. And the Allied command ignored all of his men, and they called on Snoopy to do it again. So Snoopy goes up, and he engages the Red Baron, and it's a long, protracted fight, and he's got ice on his wings, and he knows he's in trouble. The Baron comes in behind him, and right about to squeeze the trigger and blow him out of the sky. But he doesn't do it, because he hears the bells from the village below, the Christmas bells. And instead he forces Snoopy to fly to the Rhine River, which was the dividing line between France and Germany, still is today, and forced him to land behind enemy lines, and Snoopy's certain that he's done for. And then the Baron cries out, "Merry Christmas, my friend." And he pulls out a bottle of champagne, he offers him a holiday toast, and Snoopy salutes his host. They both get in their planes, go their separate ways, knowing they'll meet on some other day. And that song, this is from like the 60s, okay? My mom listened to this when she was a wee little kid. And she played it for us when I was a kid. And it took me most of my life to understand the significance of this. And the lyrics, they start, Christmas bells, oh Christmas bells, ringing from the land, asking peace of all the world and goodwill to men. And it ends with Christmas bells, those Christmas bells rang up from the land, bringing peace to all the world and goodwill to men. So I ask you this question right now, as the Christmas bells are ringing here on December 24th, 2017. Can the Christmas bells bring peace to our world? Can you sit down tonight with that one uncle who always gives you a hard time and set the politics aside, hoist a mug of eggnog, give them a heartfelt hug or a handshake, and truly wish them a Merry Christmas? Whether you're religious or not, are you able to grab hold of that spirit of just common humanity and lay down our swords for one day and one night? Take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to jump into Rand Paul's annual Festivus airing of grievances. Because, of course, it can't be Christmas related. It's got to be Festivus, the holiday for the rest of us. You're listening to the HollowNet podcast here on the Lanterns Media Network from Phoenix. I'm Matt Holloway. Stick around.
You're listening to the HollowNet on Lanterns Media Network. The millennial conservative resistance begins here.
Hey, everybody. This is Matt Holloway. You're listening to the HollowNet podcast here on the Lanterns Media Network. I want to pause our show a little bit and ask you if you could please find it within yourself, find a little bit of time to hop onto patreon.com/thehollownet, or you can search makersupport.com for the HollowNet as well, because putting together this show is not a paying venture. In fact, it actually costs me a bit. And I do it because I love doing it. But I know that I can do it better. I know that I can deliver to you better content, better production values, and continue the mission of the HollowNet, which is to ensure that honest political discourse among millennials and among all people does not succumb to the silence of political correctness. I want to ensure that everyone has a seat at the table, that we're able to tackle the hard topics without fear of persecution for our views, without holding back, and knowing that we all respect one another and love one another as fellow Americans. So if you can find it within you this year to hop on makersupport.com/HollowNet or on patreon.com/thehollownet, it'll help a great deal. Now, there are many, many levels that you can sponsor at. You can become an advertising sponsor for $72 or $125 a month, and that'll entitle you to either a 30 or a 60-second ad during the show, subject to approval. Or you can become just a general supporter for as little as $1 a day to become a patron, $1 a month, or $5 for behind-the-scenes access, or $10 to become a supporting member and get a signed digital poster. So if you have the opportunity to, if you have a couple of bucks to spare, if you like the content that we're putting out and you want to see more of it, I ask that you pitch in a little bit and throw us some monetary love, because I need to get some better equipment. I'm sure a better background would be good now that we're doing YouTube and now that we're doing BitChute. Most of all, whether you've become a donor or not, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a listener and a supporter of the HollowNet podcast here on the Lanterns Media Network. And as always, I say God bless you, and God bless the United States of America. Thanks, everybody. That is the United States Marine Corps Band playing We Wish You a Merry Christmas. And the reason I'm playing that is, number one, it sounds awesome. Number two, it doesn't cost me anything. Ha Gotta love public domain. Anyway, so coming on back now from our quick little break there, I did want to break it out to Rand Paul's annual Festivus airing of Grievances. Oh boy, it looks like he's drawn crosshairs on Ted Cruz. Goodness. So, longtime followers of Senator Rand Paul's Twitter feed know that the sometimes offbeat Kentucky Republican makes a big deal out of the fictional holiday of Festivus from Seinfeld. So, his airing of grievances are about how the government spends our money this time. The average taxpayer pays around $8,136. That means programs in this report wasted the taxes of 69,250 people. And he goes on a rather long Twitter screed and airs some grievances on Harry Reid, poked a little fun at Ted Cruz, who got into a highly publicized Twitter spat with Mark Hamill. You can check this out on theblaze.com. I strongly recommend it. Leon Wolf, the managing editor over there, put that together, and it's some good times. As far as the big news that is hitting the scene today, it's, as you would expect, to be a little bit on the muted side. One piece that really got my attention was apparently there are some folks out there claiming that Jingle Bells is an inherently racist song because it was first performed at a blackface theater back in the 1800s. I think that bears a little bit of examination, that I don't believe the song in and unto itself is racist, or that its meaning today is racist. However, if it was first performed in a blackface theater in the 1800s, I mean, that's a little bit besides the point. I would say that theater is certainly racist, but is the content and context of Jingle Bells by nature racist? I don't believe so, and I think they're reaching here. It's a quick grab for a holiday headline, and I think it's very disingenuous. And it's levying an assault against a beloved tradition in our country. And it's that kind of crap that really needs to stop, especially, as I said, in lieu of the concept of the Christmas ceasefire. Let's lay down our arms, let's embrace each other as Americans, and just have a Merry freaking Christmas. Come on. Santa Claus is watching. I mean, I've been telling my 4-year-old all week that we have the Santa Claus report card that we put stars in when he does good, and we put an X on it when he does something bad, and he can be extra good to get that X off of there. So, because we don't want Santa Claus to see that big red X on the Santa Claus report card, because you might get, throwing back to my German heritage, you might get Hundsvatzen for Christmas. Hundsvatzen. Oh, doesn't that sound terrible? It's what my grandmother used to tell me. God rest her soul. Grandma'd be in her 80s if she was still alive. Passed away back in 2006. But she always used to say, you're going to get Hundsvatzen for Christmas. roughly translated means dog farts. And I always kind of wondered about the physics of that. And yeah, this is how low on the totem pole I'm going to get for Christmas Eve. I'm going to go to the fart jokes. I always imagined, she'd take my dog Zuzu at the time, a black half lab, half husky, put the stocking right up to her butt and feed her some chili or something. And I'd wind up with Hundsfatzen. A lot of people go with the tradition of Santa will give you coal. But, yes, we're talking about what Santa gives you bad. Gives you, if you're naughty, here on the HollowNet podcast. That's some hard-hitting analysis and news. But what the hell? It's the last show of 2017. I thought we'd make a little fun of it. In top stories this hour, again, 5:54 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. When you're hearing this, it'll be the 24th, but pre-recording right now on the 23rd, because I have crap to do. I have a family, believe it or not. Wife, 3 small kids. Yeah, we got to do the Christmas thing. Andrew McCabe, the FBI's embattled deputy, is expected to retire. He's racing to the clock to retire with full benefits in 90 days, according to Twitter, as President Trump seems to ratchet up his feud with the FBI. So that's very, very interesting. Flipping through that, we're seeing more and more negative coverage of Trump as we approach Christmas, as you would expect. According to Business Insider, Trump reportedly said Haitians all have AIDS and Nigerians live in huts during an outburst on immigration. Now, this is Business Insider. I expect a little bit more from Business Insider than, just flinging crap around about the president. Reports are the White House has vehemently denied that Trump used those terms in the meeting. Apparently this was a meeting in June over the amount of visas awarded to travelers from certain countries. And I really can't look at this kind of stuff anymore and just go, yeah, that seems plausible. Yeah, that really seems plausible. At the same time, I don't want to outrightly dismiss things as fake news, like some alt-right shill. I want to make sure we're examining things with critical thinking here. And why is this coming out right now is the huge question. Why does it take... This takes place in June. Why does it take 6 months for this to come out at this point? And from the Business Insider, of all people. Story's only 2 hours old. It always seems a bit disingenuous to me when a huge conservative or Republican victory occurs and immediately it's deflect. When honestly, they have enough things to talk about right now. When we come back from the Christmas break, first thing on the agenda, Congress is going to be hack and slash the federal budget because you have a $1.5 trillion or $2 trillion deficit, depending on how you slice the numbers. They need to pay for that. So what's going to be first thing on the chopping block? Entitlements, which they need to be. And I've called out before that this tax break was fantastic. I'm so glad that President Trump signed this tax break into law and that Congress actually got off the stick and did something. Actually did their bloody job for once. It's amazing. It's incredible. It's unlikely. But then we have this. We have this deflect. Quick, we got to say something crappy about President Trump. We got to bait him. We got to get him to jump on his Twitter and latch on and respond because, man, that's a check that never bounces. You say something rough about President Trump, he's going to jump on Twitter. He's going to light you on fire. It's the kind of style that he ran for president on. But I have to agree with what Ben Shapiro was saying this week when he covered for Glenn Beck on his program for over Thursday and Friday. Go back and check those out. He did an awesome job. I threw a Twitter redirect to him. But he said that if Trump could put down his Twitter for 2 weeks, just go golfing. You're into vacation. You got the big tax cut. Go. Just if anything important happens, somebody will tell you. But if he could do that, then he's got this in the bag. If he can just stay off of Twitter and stay out of the public eye and let Congress go to work and get now not just the tax cuts, but the spending cuts that our country desperately needs, if he can get that knocked out, we're golden. We're going to talk about that a little bit more when we come back from this really quick break. You're listening to the HollowNet podcast here on the Lanterns Media Network. We're going to bring it to a close here on Christmas Eve 2017. Be right back.
Incoming transmission.
Allied reinforcements have arrived from the west.
You're listening to the HollowNet on Lanterns Media Network. The millennial conservative resistance begins here.
Hey everybody, you're listening to the HollowNet podcast here on the Lanterns Media Network. We're just wrapping things up here on Christmas Eve 2017, pre-recorded on the 23rd. Because I am, right now, probably sitting down and eating with my family and getting ready to open up a couple of presents. We usually go over to my wife's parents' house, the in-laws, and do their Christmas gig, sit around the tree, hand out the Secret Santa gifts and all that fun stuff. And the kids have a blast, and it's a great time. So, yeah, I'm probably, stuffing my fat gob right about now and eating and chugging some eggnog and getting ready to open up presents. So, I just wanted to take this opportunity. This is the point of the show where I normally go over what's going on Twitter, talk to you about what's coming up in the week and what we should keep our eyes open for. And right now, I just want to tell you what's going on in the week. It's bloody Christmas. It's Christmas Eve. Tomorrow's Christmas Day. It's a day for children to get what they've been waiting all year for. And it's a day for adults to feel a little bit like children. To feel that deep sense of peace and well-being in the world. And to remember the better aspects of our humanity. So that's what I want you to think about this week. I don't want you to think about any stories or what's trending on Twitter. It's all kind of stupid right now anyway. I want you to think about your family. I want you to think about your friends. Those you hold close and those you hold dear. Whether they're with you or whether they're somewhere else. If there's a person who in the course of the last couple of years, or even over the course of the Trump election, who you deeply care about and you stop talking to, pick up the phone. Give them a call. In the spirit of Christmas. See if they won't answer it. And speak kindly to them. Let them know that bygones are bygones. And that at the end of the day, we're fellow human beings. We're family. And that the most important things aren't in the ballot box. They're not in your news feed. They're not things that we vote for. They're the people who join us on the journey. If we disagree, that's a good thing. Because diversity of opinion is a blessing. If we all thought the same way, the world would be very, very boring, wouldn't it? In my home state of New Jersey right now, they should be getting a white Christmas. Same thing with a lot of parts of the north and the Midwest. A lot of snow is supposed to be coming in, so everybody be careful on those roads, driving to and from. Be safe. Get there alive. That's the most important thing. Enjoy the white Christmas. Down here in Arizona, we got a little 2-day cold snap. We got down to the 50s. But I don't think it's going to get much colder than that. So we're not going to see any snow this year because I'm not driving up to Flagstaff to see it. Maybe next year when the twins are a little bit older, we'll get up there and do like the Santa experience or something. They also have a cool little train ride up in Williams that I want to try out one year. It's kind of the Polar Express. It looks like a lot of fun. So, to cap it all off, 2017 has been an amazing year. Putting this podcast together has been one of the greatest joys that I've ever known. And, I mean, when it comes down to it, it all kind of started with Lanterns Media Network reaching out to me after my contributorship with The Blaze ended. And everyone that followed me from there to here, I deeply appreciate it and thank you and God bless you. Everybody who's discovered me in the meanwhile, you're not left out. Thank you and God bless you too. but I do this because I love it. Even if I didn't have a podcast or write any stories, I'd be a news hound anyway, because it's just who I am. It's what fascinates me. So, as we come into Christmas, I am so incredibly thankful for each and every one of you. And I want you to know, from in my heart, I wish you and your families the merriest of Christmases, the most merry Christmas, and a happy, safe, prosperous, and God-blessed New Year. And I hope that you'll continue to join me every Sunday as we go forward. Just as a reminder, tomorrow, Christmas Day, is your 4th candle for Advent, and have the youngest in the family light the Christ candle if that's something you do. And say a prayer for us all, that we, like our ancestors 100 years ago, can find it within ourselves to lay our weapons down in observance of our common humanity and in the spirit of Christmas. From Phoenix, Arizona, where nary a flake is going to fall, but I decorate my house all the same. It's all strung up with lights. Wishing you a very Merry Christmas. Good night. God bless you. God bless the United States of America. Good night, everybody.